Haroon returned just after the first rain of early spring, when the soil smelled awake and the mountains were still bruised with snow. His colleagues in Lahore wished him well, assuming he needed peace and quiet to finalize his research, his nearly completed thesis on rare pre-Mughal manuscripts. He let them believe that. It was easier than explaining the truth. He did not return for research. He returned because silence had swallowed his brother's final phone call, and every night since, that silence had clawed behind Haroon's ribs like something alive. Farid had died in their childhood home, hung from a ceiling beam in the small back room where their great-grandfather once worked. The official explanation used soft words: stress, mental strain, gradual decline. But villagers were less delicate. They said the house had a history. They said no one should work in the room with the old inks. They said Farid had been following the wrong lines. Haroon dismissed it all. He had grown in a university environment. Footnotes, verifiable sources, critical analysis. Yet when he unlocked the old wooden door, the familiar darkness inside greeted him like something that had been waiting. The house still held the faint smell of sandalwood and ink, always ink, absorbed deep into the walls from decades of calligraphy. Their great-grandfather, Rustat Halim, had been known once in Peshawar and throughout the valley. His Quranic scripts were said to have such precision that devout pilgrims traveled simply to look at them. But no one spoke as openly of the other commissions, quietly paid, discreetly delivered, text not meant to be recited in mosque. Haroon had grown up hearing scattered rumors, Halim being visited late at night, Halim burning pages before dawn, Halim refusing to teach his sons the more complex symbols, claiming some shapes remember who writes them. As a child, Haroon had been fascinated. As an adult, he dismissed it as oral exaggeration, the sort of mythology villages weave to keep history breathing. The first night in the house was colder than he expected. Dust shifted in the corners when he walked. Shadows stretched longer than the light that cast them. He tried to sleep, but the silence seemed to pulse. And then a noise, subtle, steady, scratch, pause, scratch, not quite footsteps, not pipes, a sound he recognized immediately from memory, a reed pen dragged slowly across paper. The writing desk in the next room remained untouched, just as they had left it after Farid's death. Yet in the morning, Haroon found a single sheet lying perfectly centered on the desk, as though placed with purpose. On it was a single symbol in drying ink, a circle split diagonally. An eye held open, watching. Life in the village settled into a rhythm that felt both familiar and wrong. Haroon woke early, walked the uneven road to the small library, and spent his days cataloging manuscripts too brittle to touch without gloves. He tried to lose himself in work, in order, in the quiet logic of ink and paper, but the disturbances, small at first, threaded themselves through his days. It began with the smell. The house had always carried the scent of ink, but now it seemed sharper, wet, iron-tanged, metallic. Like blood left too long in the air, it clung to his clothes, his hair, the inside of his mouth. No amount of washing removed it. At the library, the old caretaker, Safiola, eyed him with an expression that was not quite concern, not quite fear. Safiola was a man who measured his words, who understood how silence shapes knowledge. He only spoke when necessary. One afternoon, while Haroon was recording marginalia from an early Persian commentary, Safiola tapped the wooden chest in the corner. The one always kept locked. "You don't want what's in there," the old man said softly. Haroon didn't look up. "It's just manuscripts." Safiola exhaled slowly, as if bracing himself. His songwriting doesn't stay where it's written. The words sat heavy between them. Haroon forced a small laugh, but something inside him tightened. At night, he began waking in strange positions, sitting upright in bed, or standing near the writing desk, fingers curled as if holding a pen. He never remembered rising. The sheets bore faint smears of ink. His nails darkened at the edges. Sometimes he woke with paper scattered around him, his handwriting fractured and frantic, repeating phrases that seemed to echo thoughts he had never had. "It sees through me. I cannot shut my eyes." The line continues. He told himself he was sleep-deprived. Trauma does strange things. Memory is not a clean machine, but the dreams were harder to dismiss. Farid appeared again and again, not facing him, always turned slightly away, like someone standing in another room. listening. His shoulders hunched not in sorrow but in vigilance, as if expecting something, as if trying to warn him. One night, Farid's whisper reached him clearly. "You shouldn't have come back. He knows your hand." Haroun jolted awake, heart rattling, the room spinning, but the quiet was worse. Because he realized the whisper had not come from inside his dream. It had come from behind him, from within the dark room itself, and the house felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for him to notice. Haroun did not go to the library the next day. He could not bear the stairs, could not bear the stairs, nor the questions he feared would follow if anyone looked at him too long. If they noticed the ink creeping into the beds of his nails, the tremor beginning in his right hand. So he stayed in the house, pacing the corridor like a man circling a well he's afraid to look down into. By late afternoon, he forced himself to confront the writing desk. He laid out the pages he had produced during those lost midnight hours, pages he supposedly did not remember writing. Yet the handwriting was unmistakably his. The letters were precise, each curve balanced, each diacritical mark placed with practiced intention. But the words themselves, those were not his. The pages formed no sentences, just repetitions of the same symbol, the same shapes, the same name. Over and over, Halim, his great-grandfather. The great-grandfather, signed in a way that was not a signature, but a claim. A shiver passed through Haroun. The ink was still glossy, still wet, still moving as if breathing. He threw the pages into the courtyard fire pit and lit them. The flames hissed, not crackling like paper should, but almost whispering, as though the ink resisted burning. That evening, Safiola came to the house uninvited. He stood in the doorway, hat in hand, face grave. "Who've opened his work," the old man said without needing to be told. Haroun felt something inside him break open. "Tell me," he said. "All of it." Safiola stepped inside as if entering a grave. His voice was low, careful, shaped by fear. Halim did not begin as a calligrapher of curses. He was a man of faith, but he was also proud. When his rival humiliated him, publicly, repeatedly, Halim sought out practices older than prayer. The mountain people used writing not only to record, but to bind, to trap intention inside symbols. Halim wrote the rival's name into a sigil designed to unravel the mind from within. Haroun swallowed throat raw. Then the rival went mad. "Yes," Safiola said, "but curses have two ends. Ink marks both the written and the writer. The words fell like weights. It infects the bloodline," Haroun whispered. Safiola nodded, eyes glistening. Farid tried to destroy the writing. He tried to end it. The curse broke him first. Haroun felt the truth settle, heavy, irreversible, as if the walls themselves leaned closer to listen. The curse was not an external force, not a ghost, not a haunting. It was inheritance. He looked down at his ink-stained fingers and knew the curse was finishing its work, not on paper, but inside his mind. The days that followed did not feel like days. Time thinned, stretched, folded. Light seemed weak in the house, as though the walls absorbed it. Haroun stopped opening the curtains. He no longer trusted what stood beyond glass. He tried to leave twice. The first time, he packed a bag and walked down the dusty road toward the bus stop. With every step, the mountains loomed heavier, the air thick as ink. Then, without transition, without memory, he found himself standing in the courtyard again, staring at the writing desk through the open doorway. His shoes were still dusty, his bag was still packed. His body had come back without asking his permission. The second attempt ended the same way. One moment on the road, the next back at the desk. Only now a fresh sheet of paper waited for him. The reed pen rested beside it, dipped in ink that glistened like oil. "Sit," something urged. He did. The ink bled smoothly under his hand. He did not think, he only followed. The shapes formed themselves. Old calligraphy strokes, steady and exact, though his hand trembled like he was writing underwater. He realized, in a distant, horrified way, that he was continuing the sigil his great-grandfather had begun decades ago. He was finishing a curse he never chose. Each stroke tightened something behind his ribs. At night, Farid no longer appeared at the edges of dreams. He stood directly beside Haroun's bed, eyes hollow but alert, not warning, witnessing, as if he too was being made to watch. Haroun stopped speaking aloud. Words felt unsafe. They carried shapes. Shapes carried intention, and intention here had teeth. His reflection began to warp, not grotesquely, subtly. A delay in movement, a flicker behind the eyes, a widening of pupils that did not match the light. When he blinked, he saw inked lines on the whites of his eyes, threads of script branching across the globe like veins learning a new alphabet. He understood finally. The curse did not kill. It rewrote, not the world, the person. Memory blurred, thoughts doubled. He could not recall which feelings belonged to him and which were inherited, passed down like an heirloom no one did. His great-grandfather's grief, his brother's fear, his rival's madness, all layered inside him, whispering. On the last night, Haroon sat at the writing desk without resistance. His hand moved. The ink glistened. The sigil neared completion, and the air in the room felt aware, as if something ancient leaned close to watch him finish. And now that your eyes have traced these lines, it knows your hand as well.